In this video, I'm going to show you the exact system that we run in the backend to source multi-million dollar business deals on behalf of our clients and the strategies that we deploy to find motivated sellers off market. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Marco Palmero. My company Ulysses helps private equity groups, search funds, investment firms, even brokers and advisors in finding prospects, finding companies for sale and deals off market. That's all we do. And we do that through a proprietary system called the DealFlow Engine that we created over the years that kind of like helps us streamline the process of sourcing, qualifying, and selecting business owners that might have an interest in exiting their business. So I put together a diagram that you can see on screen that kind of summarizes the steps that we go over when we build these pipelines on behalf of our clients, and we then originate deals on their behalf, because most of what we do is simplifying the process of finding deals so that our clients can then focus all their attention on negotiating and closing deals instead of finding them. So if that is something that is relevant to you, stick with me. I'm going to show you the exact steps that we run through when we build these infrastructures in the backend. And if you want to review this diagram, you're going to have the ability to download it in the description of this video. Check the link below and you can download it for free. So I want to break down each section of the diagram and have a conversation around each part of it, because it's quite dense with information. I'm going to zoom in on that so that we can focus on specific items on the diagram. And I want to start with the overall strategy behind this technical setup that we have in place at Ulysses. The idea that we kind of like believe in is that if we can create a predictable system for finding motivated sellers, then the entire process of origination can be summarized into a few words. It's really a funnel, right? We're talking about finding people that might have an interest in selling their company, qualifying them for a set of criteria, and then booking them for a call with investors, buyers, or advisors, if that is the client that we're helping. So how do we adapt sort of like a funnel to our needs to make it work in the M&A industry, which is a very complex industry where it's difficult to find motivated sellers and actually good deals? How do we create something that can actually work and has a chance of performing and delivering these multi-million dollar opportunities to us? Well, the first most important aspect of it all is the kind of like pipeline creation. So we need to get clarity on what is it that we're trying to achieve and what is the type of asset that we want to identify. It might be, a healthcare company, a home care business, a manufacturing facility. It really depends on the type of assets that you want to acquire, but we need to be crystal clear on the type of businesses that we want to identify. And the first step, as I mentioned here in the 7 days off market pipeline creation, the first step is creating a reliable deal flow engine, is define the target specifically, collect quality data, and build an outreach strategy engineered for conversion. So the first and most important element is the target. Now, as you can see here on the timeline, the target is in kind of like at the very beginning. And it is broken down in a couple different sections, and it kind of like explains what are the things that we want to be aware of before we actually start reaching out to people. Because the most interesting thing about finding businesses for sale is that if you don't have very specific criteria to use and to leverage when you identify prospects, you are never going to get the results that you seek. And most people wonder why their system might not be working, or they might not be getting the type of deal flow that they desire. And in most instances, or in some instances, the issue is in the targeting. So they're not specific enough and they don't have clarity on the type of company they want to acquire. They're just looking around, hoping something that sparked their interest will fall into their laps. And that is not the case. We need to be crystal clear, because everything that follows is going to be built upon the targeting that we have. And so when we look at this thing strategically, the first strategic decision that we want to make is, what are the type of companies that I want to go after? And here, as you can see, I have some breakdowns. I mean, we want to have clarity on the expected revenue that they might have, the years in business, employees. Of course, we can make educated guesses on some of these things. But then again, we can talk about the company size, the geography, the industry, target niches, sub-industries. Those we can be more specific. In those are kind of like things that we can kind of identify in an easier way. And then again, we can talk about industry keywords, reference websites that we can use to pull out data in the right way. We can build up inclusion list, but at the same time, we can build exclusion list to avoid, including companies that might not necessarily be good for us. So there are a lot of ways to skin the cat fundamentally, and a lot of details that we want to be aware of before we actually initiate our work and kind of like start finding deals. But those are some of the items that I would take into consideration if I were to build up a strategy for finding a specific asset for sale, or multiple companies that I then want to acquire or advise as a broker or investment banker. So targeting, most important aspect of it all. We want to nail that down. And once we have clarity on that, it becomes, it's time for us to collect data that we're going to use to build our infrastructure. Most of the system is based on reaching out to business owners directly. So we want to have the information, the details of these people, so that, we can actually connect with them. And here, I mean, I could really spend hours talking about the data collection part of the equation, but the truth is there are different schools of thought, and I don't necessarily believe any of them is actually right. A lot of people will pitch you the idea that there's a certain database that is going to help you the most, a right way to find data, and all these sorts of things. My experience after sourcing deals for, again, private equity groups, search funds, strategic buyers, advisors, globally, really, North America, Middle East, Europe, my experience is that there's no cookie cutter solution for data sourcing. The reality of it is we want to use a combination of data that enables us to cover the market effectively and achieve, almost 100% accuracy. And as you can see here on screen, I noted down 4 key kind of like data sources, if we want to call them this way. One of them is Google, the other is LinkedIn. Then we have databases. I mean, I didn't mention one in specific because I think that's just nonsense. A lot of databases can work for these purposes. And then other sources. So Google is generally something that can help us in optimizing for volume, which means it's very difficult for a business not to be available on Google, even if we're talking about a very tiny company. So we can comfortably say that Google enables us to cover all the bases and identify every company that is available out there. So we can optimize for volume from that perspective. Issue with that is Google might not have all the data that we need. So it might have information about the business, but not about the decision makers. So that is where Google becomes a little bit less effective. Now, from that perspective, LinkedIn helps us a lot because it can optimize for specificity. In fact, LinkedIn can identify people in the contact information of these person. So it's very effective if you combine it with Google, because it can then enhance the data that you get from Google and find decision makers much quicker. Problem is, not always LinkedIn is, the panacea for all problems, and we need to use alternative sources to get even more data. Now, the others section that I mentioned above else is doing just that. So covering the blind spots of LinkedIn and Google. And below, I included databases that optimizes for quality. And what I mean by that is if you are looking for organized data and maybe you don't want to spend a lot of time on Google or LinkedIn or other platforms, then maybe a database is the right solution for you because you're going to get the quality you need in there. You might not necessarily get the quantity or the specificity in terms of targeting, but you might get quality data. So you might get less data, but at least you know that the information you're going to get is verified. The businesses that you're going to reach out to have this type of contact information and all these sorts of things. So uh, you can use any of these separately. My suggestion is always to combine them to um, improve accuracy and get even more data out of the market, because that is kind of like where we are going to build and develop our strategy. If we just reach out to people that everybody else is reaching out to, then chances are we're going to get what everybody else is getting. So getting more data than other people and finding it in a creative way can unlock opportunities that other people might not have access to. And that's why we want to use different data providers in combination. Then we're talking about the outreach part. Now, here is where we really get into the messaging part of the system. And a lot of it depends on the industry that you're targeting, what you are pitching. So if you're a buyer, an advisor, whatever, there are three elements that I kind of like outline here: copywriting, variations, and personalization. So these are kind of like the instruments, kind of like these solutions, the strategies that you can leverage to make sure your message converts once you reach out to somebody, and that independently of the channel that you're using to reach out to these people. You might use email, you might use calls, you might use LinkedIn, you name it. So copywriting, again, copy that resonates with your target audience. Personalization, make the message sound unique for that specific avatar. Variations, test different templates, because you cannot really know which one is going to perform better. You just need to, put them out into the market and see how the people react to it, and then work on the top performing ones. So these are the three steps that kind of like build the foundation of the deal flow pipeline. It is something, process that we generally go over 7 days when we work with clients one-on-one. But you can build this thing out on your own if you want to do it yourself. Just going to take you quite a lot of work to come up with all these things and put them all in one place. But this is just an outline of how you can potentially do things. And again, I'm not going to spend too much time on this, because if we were to talk about messaging more in detail, we will spend hours here. Data also and targeting, I mean, we can talk for days about that. So this is just an overview of how you're utilizing these processes to come up with an initial strategy for finding motivated sellers, multi-million-dollar business opportunities that want to exit. And this is the 7-day off-market pipeline creation. It's kind of like the blueprint of how we get things set up and how we move them to the next step. Now, what happens once we have the core infrastructure in place? So we understand what our target is, we collected data, and we created the messaging part so that we can now start reaching out to people. Well, we then go down to what I call the omnichannel outreach system. So that is a consistent and reliable outreach framework designed to maximize results by identifying the right communication channels, nurturing engagement, and converting conversations into qualified calls. So in a nutshell, you can see it here on screen. The objective is to have a outreach system that leverages multiple channels. In this case, I listed email, LinkedIn, we can mention calls, SMSs, letters, you name it. And then has a specific way of nurturing people throughout the process so that we can keep them engaged and ultimately get them on the phone or on a meeting if they're interested in selling. Because if we just reach out one time, our chances of success are very slim, especially in competitive markets like the US. So we're going to need to build a strategy that leverages follow up and, to some extent, value based follow ups, so that people see that we are doing things differently compared to others that might have sent them a message in the past. Additionally, follow ups helps us because it enables us to tap people multiple times and maybe get them the moment they decide they're ready to exit. Selling a business is not something that people decide overnight. It might be a decision that they mature over a series of months. And as a consequence, the first message that we send them might not be coming at the right time. But as we keep touching them, we might get them, 2, 3 months later when they ultimately decided it's time for them to take action, and therefore we will get a response from them. So we want to have a strong follow-up system, but also multiple channels that are reaching out to these people, so we can understand what is the channel where they're more likely to respond, and then build the communication and the relationship on that channel. I had many interactions with people on LinkedIn, and these guys would never reply to me on email. To the same regard, I wouldn't try to message on LinkedIn a plumber, for example, but I would call them directly. So depending on the industry, the type of target that you have, you might want to build this strategy using these blocks in a different way. But the objective is to keep the channels in constant communication. So you maybe message people via email 2, 3 times. If you don't get a response, you try and message them on LinkedIn, then on another channel, and so forth, until you get some sort of feedback from them. That not only enables you to find where the person is more likely to respond, but also prevents you from looking like a spammy guy. Because if you just use one channel and you keep hammering them there, you're going to look weird after 2, 3 follow-ups. Even if instead, after 2, 3 follow-ups, you transition to another channel, that is going to perform much better. And that's what we saw historically when sourcing deals for people. So you can really add any channel to this depending on your needs, and then use automation to sync them all together. Again, automation is a topic that we can discuss over many hours, but the point is, if everything works together, then once you set up this initial infrastructure, the system will run on its own, because automation will take care of moving leads in the right stages as they provide you with feedback, and ultimately just let you check the good opportunities that came in and then book a call with them and book calls with them. And so here I just summarized the process, how it might look like. So initial email outreach, you get a yes or no. If no, remove. Yes, it goes into positive reply and becomes part of the deal flow pipeline. If no response, follow up until you get feedback. Yes, no, follow up. Same thing on LinkedIn. And again, adaptations and variations apply to this. So depending on what you want to achieve, what your system is all about, you can customize this to your needs. And again, if you want to review this more in detail, you can download the kind of like one pager into the description. I will just move to the second section because I don't want to spend too much time in here. We will actually need hours to go through this system if we had to go in detail on every step. Now, once you have the system that is kind of like doing outreach to business owners across a variety of different channels, and you're collecting replies from them, then what is it that you do? How is it that the funnel is structured? Because it's not enough to just get yes from people and then try to bang them until they ultimately, decide they want to exit their business. But there's a kind of like a nurturing process and a qualification process that we want to take these people through. And that really depends on how tight you want to be in filtering targets. And as you can see here, I have this example funnel where I share the 3 steps that we want to follow: attract, qualify, and book, so that we can get deal flow at the bottom. So this first part that I outline here is the attraction part. So we leverage an omni-channel system to connect with business owners across multiple touch points, identifying those that are genuinely interested in selling. And the only objective of that initial outreach is to get people that are interested to say yes. Yes, I'm interested. We might use LinkedIn, email, SMS, calls, other social media, letters, you name it. Channels are really endless, and they depend on the strategy that you are creating. But once you have these yeses, then we want to understand whether or not they're a fit for what you're trying to achieve, right? So if they're the right asset that you want to buy, they're the right fit for your investment criteria, they're good clients for you as an investment banker or a broker. So we need to go through the qualification part. And that is where we evaluate seller motivation and confirm strategic fit through a simple qualification step. That might be a questionnaire, a Loom video, screening call, deep research, really a lot of different ways you can skin the cat and kind of like filter people based on the quality of the lead. But the point is, as you set up this qualification filter, you can expect different results at the bottom of the funnel. What do I mean by that? If you set up tight filtering systems, all the leads that say yes, I'm interested will go through that filtering process. It's a consequence. Very few of them might end up being good fits, and you might have less calls that are higher quality. On the flip side, if you have a qualification system that is less tight, you might have more people that get on calls, but a few of these calls might be unqualified. And that's the trade-off that you need to make and understand, because there's really no right solution or right answer to this problem. It's just a matter of understanding what is it that you're more comfortable with. If you prefer having less calls that are going to be more qualified, then go for the tight approach. If you want to have a lot of calls to get a sense of the market, and then you're okay in taking a few meetings that might not necessarily be a fit, then maybe a less a rigid approach is the way to go. It's all about you and about what is it that makes sense for your business. We had clients that wanted super tight processes, and maybe they were happy with one call every 2 weeks, provided that was a deal that could get closed in the next 4 weeks or something like that. On the flip side, we had people that needed to get a grasp of what was happening in the market. Therefore, they said just book call with anybody that replies yes. So they got 3, 4, 5, 10 calls per week, and then they accepted that some of them were going to be discarded because they were not what they were looking for. So, pick your poison, as they would say, and then test it out, because you can adapt things as you move forward. And your ultimate objective is to book calls with pre-qualified sellers who pass the screening process. In our own system, we have AI-driven systems that automate this part for scheduling and booking confirmation, so that the meetings are booked quickly, and we reduce the time that is needed from first reply to confirmed appointment, and that increases show-up rates, and we avoid kind of like losing leads in that way. But that is kind of like how we filter people through before they get on the call with our clients. So people that want to buy assets, advisors, brokers, you name it. Now, the 3-step qualification framework, a streamlined flow that tracks, validates intent, and converts engagement into scheduled conversation with motivated seller interested in exiting their business. This is what we just covered over here. Now, the last step, and it's probably the most important one, is how do we organize all this stuff that comes in? Because now that we have clarity on targeting data and how we are reaching out to people, we have a system in place that brings us opportunities across multiple channels. We understand how we need to filter people so that we get the exact outcome that we need at the bottom of the funnel. Then how is it that we organize this so that we don't lose our minds trying to keep up with different prospects? Well, here's where an AI-driven backend infrastructure comes in. So a centralized CRM powered by AI and custom automations that can help us streamline communication, qualification, and booking without too much manual effort. That is kind of like the core of our system. We have a organized setup that we give our clients access to so they can track the performance of the system in real time, get notified by it so that they can always know how many leads are at the top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, end of the funnel. And they not only get full visibility, but they can also interact with us in real time. That CRM system consolidates all the efforts and the outreach that we perform in one place so that we know that by looking at that, we have a clear picture of everything that is happening, and we can kind of check the health of the pipeline and how good the system is working, how well it's working, I should say. So calls, LinkedIn, email, SMS, social media, letter, all these systems, all these outreach channels can be consolidated through automation into a centralized CRM. In the system itself delivers end-to-end visibility and control, as I just said, keeping every stage of the origination transparent and on track. And that's what I would recommend you do as well, even if you don't want to work with somebody like us, for building this infrastructure. It's like centralize all your information, because as you build the pipeline, things will get confusing and messy. So it's important to have everything in one place to understand where you're at, what you're working on, and what you need to prioritize. So in our case, the CRM that we use to centralize data has opportunity pipelines, deal segmentation, qualification processes in place, data management, calendar management, call booking, and follow-ups all integrated in one place. And at last, we have some AI enhancement. As I mentioned here, we can manage inbound replies and intent detection, automate follow-ups, score the leads based on a set of criteria. Syncing and updating data is easier, and it can continuously improve the process through data learning. So the more deals we source, the better it gets at understanding what we need and giving us the outcome that we desire, of course, depending on the engagement that we are working on. So if we need to break down our process in steps, we probably have 4 direct core steps. First is getting clarity on the pipeline, targeting data outreach. That's step number 1. Then building an omni-channel system to reach out to people and get the ones that are interested in selling their company. Then step 3, how do we qualify them? So attract, qualify, and book. And lastly, AI-driven backend infrastructure to centralize everything and keep data organized. That's how we run most of our engagements. When we work with people one-on-one, we source deals on their behalf. This is all that happens in the backend, because clients never see this. I mean, they only see the dashboard and the type of leads that they're getting access to and the calls that are being booked. But this is kind of like what goes on when we run the system for them. And you can check that out by yourself. You can download this document below by clicking in the description. And if you want us to work with you on building some of these things and actually run the system for you, then you can book a call to check out whether or not we can work together, first of all, because we need to understand whether or not your search or the type of assets that you want to identify are a fit for us. Then if we have slots available, because we're generally booked up in advance, we can potentially help with that. But even if we're not able to help you with our bespoke services, there might still be other ways we can help. We have people that build this infrastructure on their own, kind of like a do-it-yourself method, or others that just help us, ask us for help and guidance in having them build the system or training their team to build the system. So different ways to look at things. Of course, the most effective way is when we work with people and we build the whole infrastructure for them, we run them, and they just focus on closing deals, because then this whole technical thing is up to us. We need to do this for you, and you just take appointments with motivated sellers. So that's where we really can provide maximum value, but there are also other ways you can get this done. And hopefully by downloading this, you can get some good information about how you can fix your system. If you have challenges, something is not working with your deal flow pipeline. You want to improve on that, get better deal flow, more deal flow, streamline the process, and have a system that brings opportunities almost automatically and consistently, then this can help, because ultimately the objective is having a pipeline that enables you to have options at your disposal at all times and avoid you committing all the time that you have on one deal, then having that transaction fall apart and being back sourcing from square one. We want to have a pipeline that is kind of like strong in nature, so that even if one transaction that you have falls apart, you have backups and you have always inflow of opportunities. And that's what we achieve through this system that, again, we either build for clients and we run, or we can help you develop through other ancillary services. So if you're interested in any of that, check out the link below to book a call with one of our specialists. And you can also download the one pager in there. There's going to be a separate link. And again, this is pretty much it when it comes to our own setup. And I'll see you in the next video.